kick off proceedings first, I'd like to welcome to the stage our keynote speaker for the evening, Chris Skinner. Chris is the founder and chairman of the Financial Services Club, Europe's leading networking group for senior executives in financial services. He joins us hot on the heels from presenting on the future of money at Sibos in Osaka before Christmas. Chris is a leading analyst on financial services, and one of the BBC's and Bloomberg's go-to fintech experts whenever there's a crisis in the banking sector, which means he's been rather busy recently. His talk tonight is titled "Our Techno-Charged World is in the Dark Ages," suggesting there's still plenty more development and disruption yet to come. Chris, to you.
Thank you, Eddie. And good evening. Eddie was very nice to me because just before he stood up to do his introduction, I threw my water all over him, which is accidental, but then it's always to make sure that when you're presenting, you're prepared for change. And maybe Eddie will need to change after the end of the session. As Eddie said, I look at the world of banking and technology. That's my space. And I've been doing it now for quite some time, too long to actually discuss in depth here. But if you wanted to find out over drinks afterwards about the first iPad that I ever saw in 1992, I will explain it to you. It's now in my attic at home. It still works, but I've lost the plug for it, so I have no idea whether I can charge it anymore. I guess some would say I'm a bit of a technology visionary because I've spent so long looking at technology and where it's taking us. And in fact, I ran 2 futures labs within large technology companies before moving into my independent state that I have today, where alongside the Financial Services Club, which I loosely call a drinking club for bankers that's become very popular in the last 4 years, I also have a business called Shaping Tomorrow that looks at the future of everything. And in particular, it looks at the future of everything from the forces of change: political, economic, social, technological. Some people say legal, environmental as well, but those are the top 4 for me: political, economic, social, technological change in banking and financial services. And when we ask the question, is this the most exciting time in technology ever? The answer is yes, but then you'll ask the same question next year and you'll say yes next year. So this year wasn't the most exciting time in technology ever. It's just a time in technology. I was dealing with mobile payments in banking in 1996, thinking that was a hot space to be in. It took until around now for it to become the hottest space to be in. So now we are in this hot space of mobile. And that hot space is going to become even hotter. And we're going to talk a lot about mobile, but I'm not, because it's actually not that interesting, to be honest. It is for some of you guys. It's not interesting for me because I was looking at that 15 years ago, so I've moved on. But the big thing about mobile for me, and that's what is transformational, is that it's taken us from a world where technology was in the back office systems of companies to a world where we went to a desk to get onto the internet, to a world where every single person on this planet is connected wirelessly through the infrastructure of the mobile network. That is a fundamental change because it means that anybody, anywhere in the world can communicate, relate electronically to anyone else anywhere in the world. They can transact and do commerce, create relationships, grow networks and business, get microfinance, change the way in which we interrelate with each other because the world is now wirelessly connected. It has transformed Africa already. Africa as a continent had no infrastructure for commercial payments for the general citizens of the African continent until mobile appeared. Now, anybody in Africa can make a payment to anyone else, not just in Africa, but anywhere in the world. And we've seen that transformation best illustrated by M-Pesa in Kenya, where, depending on the numbers you look at, and I'll go with the highest number I've been given, which is obviously by Vodafone, who own M-Pesa, 2 out of every $5 is transacted in Kenya through the mobile phone network today. 40% of their GDP moves via mobile messages. That's phenomenal. But the main reason being is that before, the only way to move money around was to give people physical cash to move the money. Now, wireless infrastructure connects everybody in Africa and the planet, 7 billion people, 24/7. You don't have to go to a desktop. You just have it in your pocket or purse. That's transformational. We go to sleep with our mobile phones, we wake up with them. Probably more often than with our partners. It's the way we work these days globally. So mobile is transformational. If you look at the developed economies, I normally illustrate this with things like Square, iZettle, Empower, where a dongle in a smartphone turns every smartphone into a point of sale. So it's not just a point of purchase, but everything in the world, globally, wirelessly, person to person, peer to peer, is a point of sale for transacting commerce, banking, financial transactions, business. So mobile's pretty transformational. It's taken 15 years or more to become mainstream during the time I've worked in mobile payments and mobile banking, but it's now mainstream. And it's a hot space. But it's dollars dishwater. Because within a couple of years, it's going to be dead. That's why we're in the dark ages. Because the first thing that's going to happen is the Internet of Things is going to wipe out the mobile hot space. Although the two are completely interrelated and integrated, the focus upon the mobile as a device for transacting is the wrong focus. It's the behavior of how we transact wirelessly that should be the right focus. And the right focus is saying, what happens when everyone's shoes, earrings, handbags, telephones, televisions, cars, bars, windows, floors are connecting, transacting? I'm a big Star Trek fan. Do you ever see anyone on Star Trek make a payment? Of course not. You just walk around and things transact around you. One of the big things that's happening right now is augmented reality. The idea that you could not use a mobile, but use glasses connected to a wireless chip that could be in your ring, and you augment your world to see everything around you. The prices of the houses that you might be interested in buying, the bars that you might want to go and visit, the other places that might be less salubrious that you also want to visit. You can see everything augmented in reality, augmented reality. The Internet of Things, when all these billions of devices are connected, is the hottest space for me right now where I'm looking at what's next. Which is why mobile to me is meaningless, because we talk about mobile as a device that you carry around. And it's a little bit like contactless payments. I hate that word, contactless payments phrase. Because NFC is actually contact payments. It's not contactless. You have to go touch something. I want to do wireless, invisible payments. I want it to be like Star Trek, where I just walk around and things transact if I want to transact. I get proactive, proximity-based focus on my lifestyle through the net if I buy in and opt into that proximity-based marketing incentivization and loyalty program. So we move from mobile to the Internet of Things, and we move to the world around us all being connected around us, where we can transact and communicate and relate wirelessly to everyone on the planet, peer-to-peer, person-to-person. And then we look at what that means in reality is that the only thing that's of any meaning in our planet these days, apart from obviously you and I relating to each other, is data. It's nothing to do with big data, another oxymoron, or whatever you want to call it, because it's not big data, it's big context. It's to do with what is it that I'm doing that you could deliver value to me to make my life more leveraged in terms of making it easier to live, simpler to live, more convenient to live, the way I want to live. How can you give me big context around how I'm living my life? Within that, the data is obviously the biggest leverage point that the likes of Google, Facebook, and others are fighting over. And in the banking community, we talk about money. And as soon as I talk about money, I have this thing popping into my head where I see nice crispy notes coming out of an ATM. That's primitive. That's so old. We don't deal with money anymore. We don't deal with crispy banknotes, except to go into a taxi because they won't accept cards or whatever it is. What we talk about, what we actually deal with, is digits on our accounts. And if you could find a way to add an extra zero or several zeros to your account and leverage that data, you would, wouldn't you? Because it's the data that's meaningful. The money is meaningless. That's why the attack on the financial system and on the government system is the cyber attack, the anonymous attack, the attack on data. I saw a presentation just last week from Sophos, one of the cybersecurity companies. And it started with saying in 2009 they were tracking 2,500 attacks a day, and now they're tracking 250,000 a day. New, different variations of malware, mobile malware and net-based malware, every day. The attack is on the data. And data, therefore, is not just our biggest data asset, but our biggest data leak, our biggest data exposure. And the battles of the future and the battles of today are around data. That's why banks are going to be challenged fundamentally by data, because they're going to go the way of Blockbuster, HMV, Comet. Because as things move into the data world, you don't need to physically do anything or go anywhere. The battle over data is going to be a huge battle, which I challenge most of the financial firms I talk to think about what it means to them, because most of them silo their data because their internal power, political lines of business infrastructures. They don't have data leverage integration. They have data separation. That's going to be a fundamental transformation of the back office for the financial market players. So if mobile is meaningless because we moved into the Internet of Things, and money is meaningless because we moved into the battle over data, then the final point becomes really interesting, because it will challenge everybody on this planet, in this country, in your business. And that's that capitalism is completely dead. As you know it, as you've grown up with it, as you think about it. Capitalism is around the free market capitalism of the Anglo-Saxon model that caused and imploded in a crisis in 2008. And it's being replaced by something else. And we've all been saying, what is it being replaced by? Some form of Chinese commu-capitalism, some form of Islamo-capitalism. You know, the Islamic banking model, which works the same as ours, just that we don't say that we get any interest on it, we just borrow it. What sort of financial model is coming through? Well, it's not a capitalist model of finance, it's a socialist model of finance. It's a hybrid between the capitalism and the communism or socialism world that clashed in the last century, but are now becoming very integrated. They're becoming integrated because we socialize as much as we commercialize things. That is what the mobile, social, data revolution has done. We don't separate our social life from our business life anymore. When I say that we go to bed with our mobile phones, quite often it's probably because you're checking the Facebook updates or email or tweets that you've just been waiting to see anyone respond to. And you do the same in the morning when you wake up. And probably many of you say, no, I don't do that. But generally, something like 7 out of 10 people sleep with their mobile because it's their alarm clock. It's keeping you in touch 24/7. So you don't separate your social life from your work life. When Facebook and all that stuff came out, how many of you ended up with some of your Facebook friends being work friends who you now wish weren't on your Facebook link? I know I do. That's why I have a work Facebook account and a personal Facebook account, and I keep them separate. Same with Twitter. But it's a lesson I learned very early on, because you have to go through that cycle of realizing the hybrid life we live in. So we now think about capitalism being separated from communism. It isn't. It's integrated. It's a hybrid where the social interests of the world are as much focused in capitalism as the commercial interests of the world. And if you don't believe that, look at the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement wouldn't exist without the social world that we have today through social media. I'm far more scared of the social media than I am of the media these days, because the social media are the things that can disrupt my business fundamentally. Just ask the people in the Middle East. Did the Arab Spring occur because you were frightened of the general media in your country? No, you controlled them. It's the social media that disrupted the Middle East for the Arab Spring. The same with the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement is now viewed by our regulators as being as important as the government has an influence. Just look at speeches by Andy Haldane and Mark Carney, the new governor of the Bank of England, if you don't believe it. Mark Carney has actually said the Occupy movement has produced something very worthwhile and meaningful. Andy Haldane has said this is now part of our regulatory thinking of the financial system, thinking about how the 99% can be protected from the 1% who have the wealth. If you don't believe that you can have social influence on capitalism, just look at the Bank of America, who were hugely publicly humiliated by one individual in Q4 2010, because that one individual posted a petition on change.org saying, I don't like the fees Bank of America has introduced as a result of the Durbin Amendment to the Dodd-Frank Agreement. Doesn't sound a big deal, does it? Within 14 days, she had 300,000 signatures. Moynihan, the chief executive of Bank of America, had to stand up and say, I reverse the policy. 20% of their current accounts were closed in Q4 as a result of that one public humiliation. They voted the #1 PR gaffe of 2010 in America, all instigated by one individual. Some would say similarly to the Arab Spring with Mohammed Bouazizi. So my summation is that the world is fundamentally shifting, and we live in the dark ages of technology because we're still learning the impact the technology changes we introduce today are having. We think mobile is a big deal. It ain't. It's just the start and continuation and evolution of the massive disruption that began 50, 60 years ago when technology and computerization first appeared. We live in a world where everything is as powerful in the hands of children as it is in the hands of the government. And when David Cameron stood here last week, apparently, I could just as easily make him embarrassed, and so could you as an individual, through a public social movement, if that was warranted, if it was bought into, if it gained traction. That's the power in the individual hand these days, and that hand is in the hand of 7 billion people, peer-to-peer, point-to-point across this planet. So that's changing not just banking, it's changing everything. And in terms of how I think it changes banking, I normally point to a couple of examples, but I'll finish by saying there is a bank that's already out there, and they're around here as one of the FinTech 50. They're going to be presenting on the 11th of February at my club. If you want to come along, just ask. They're called Fidor Bank, and you may know them. Fidor is based on the Latin word fides, which is Latin for trust. It's a bank created in 2009 to say that you could trust them, because a lot of other banks are not trustworthy. It's a bank that has a full banking license in Germany. It's a bank that gets their acquisition of new customers for about €1 per customer. That's their total cost of onboarding new business, €1 per customer, because they do everything through social media, viral networking. You sign on to your bank account using your Facebook Connect. You do not use a username and password. Once you're in your bank account, you can move funds around between your savings and investments based in euro or based in commodities. You might have oil investments, gold and silver investments. You might have Diablo gold investments, World of Warcraft gold investments. You can put those in there too. They have value. Gaming's big news. They actually allow you to get higher interest on your account if you influence your friends to like them on Facebook. For every 10,000 increase in likes on Facebook, you get 0.1 increase on your savings as a return. Reason being is that they know that the average Facebook user has 235 friends, so that's actually 2.35 million people for every 10,000 that they're getting to grow through the network. There's the import of the world we live in today. There's the changes we're living in today. There's the disruption we're living in today. It's fundamental. Money's meaningless, it's the data that's important. Capitalism is dead because we've become social capitalists, or at least we're being influenced by them. And mobile is the wrong focus. It's the Internet of Things that's the point we're at today. And that's where I'm going to focus. As Elliot Gottkind from Bloomberg introduces the panel, Elliot's the business editor for Europe with Bloomberg TV. I saw that you have interviewed David Cameron and Sir Richard Branson, so a Virgin Prime Minister is a good link. Elliot, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris.